We are live. We are live. We are live. Welcome back to Talk Live on IG and YouTube. Yes, indeed. Hope all is well with you. Sorry for the delay. Just had to get rid of some technical difficulties here, but we finally are back on live. So if you are here to join us, thank you very much for joining me at Talk Live, as we are here on YouTube, but we're about to go on IG right now. There he is. Thank you very much for joining me on Talk Live, ladies and gentlemen. A little late night edition. I'm just trying to experiment with a few times here to see which is best. Usually we have our 9 o'clock slot, but today we decided to switch it up a bit, do a little late night content, because I want to get this out of the way, because lo and behold, I have a bit of business to do until next Thursday, so this will be the last show until that time, where we'll again unleash the message onto the masses about intersexual dynamics, politics, pop culture, and all things we want to talk about. So like and subscribe, and again, we're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Thank you very much for all the new traction I'm getting on TikTok. TikTok has been running amazingly lately, doing really, really well. And also, thank you for all the traction I'm getting also on Instagram, YouTube, and all the other channels whatsoever. So, yes, it's a Saturday morning. My goodness. A bit of a late night one here. If anybody wants to join me, so be it. But I'm willing to do the show myself just for later content. But again, we are live here tonight, and we're just going to get into this about Candace Owens. Holy second. Trying to get the spotlight out of there. There we go. Okay, we're back on Talk Live. Thank you very much for joining me. And let's talk about Candace Owens. Ladies and gentlemen, Candace Owens, the former... the conservative pundit, the new star of social media and the internet, quite simply, and she is quite simply moving forward with her move away from Daily Wire, because she was recently fired from there after helping to gain Daily Wire, a 5 million subscriber count, and she was one of the stars of Daily Wire. She's been with them for a few years, but because of certain sentiments and comments regarding Christ the King, it got her fired. Now again, she has gone on record to disapprove of the war towards Israel and Hamas. She has gone on record to say that it is a war that should end. She's also gone on the record to say to have certain anti-Semitic, could be classified as anti-Semitic marks, but again, it was against Jews in the Jewish state that allowed her to have free speech. But as soon as she entered Christ the King, now that's the reason why I wanted to do the show in the first place, is because it is Easter. Christ is King, He is risen, and but again, in certain parameters, this could be seen as a derogatory term and could get you fired. And that's exactly what happened here with Candace Owens. But let's get into it right now. Let's discuss this right here, because again, I don't want to waste too much time with this, because it is a late night show here that we're doing. And thank you very much for joining me at Talk Live. Sponsored by DunTalk.com. Like, subscribe, comment. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. I'm testing out the new time right now to see how it does, how it tracks, and yes, here we go. So let's discuss what has happened here with Christ the King. We are on the Valuetainment Network. Valuetainment is doing wonderful things in these YouTube streets. Like and subscribe to Valuetainment, and the CEO Peter Bet David, who you see on the screen right now. Now he's going to discuss what eventually got Candace Owens fired. So, and then we're going to take it from perspective of, conservative black, Democrat black, or liberal black. We're going to have a Jewish and also a diverse take on the matter with the panel we have here from Valuetainment. So that's what we're going with tonight. So thank you very much for joining me on Talk Live. We're going to get into it right now. So let's do this. First, we're going to explain why, indeed, Ms. Candace Owens was fired. And this comes from the Valuetainment channel, Fair Use, and sign up to Valuetainment. They're doing wonderful things in YouTube streets. Let's go. Oh, sorry.
Battery 40%. There's no way in the world this was going to be kept the way it was handled, wasn't fair, wasn't this, wasn't that. But let me kind of read it to you here. There will be no more Candace Owens at Daily Wire amid claims the conservative commentator promoted anti-Semitic rhetoric. This is New York Daily News, by the way. The right-wing political website announced Friday it has severed ties with Owens, known for support for Trump and Kanye West, famous for their own controversial comments. Daily Wire and Candace Owens have ended their relationship, co-founder Jeremy Boring wrote on social media. And Owens puts out there saying, "I am finally free," she said in recent months. Owens cited a firestorm of backlash with her anti-Semitic commentary about the United States' role in the ongoing war. Look at the words they're using.
I know,
in this,
anti-Semitic. They love that word.
Owens also floated claims that with a small group of Jewish in Hollywood and Washington, D.C. were involved in something sinister. Okay, so now Newsweek. Keep in mind how they're all reacting to this. Candace Owens says she cannot be silenced after the Daily Wire exit. Daily Wire CEO blasts Candace Owens after Christ is King. This was a little bit of a weird tweet, Rob. Can you pull this up of Jeremy Boring that Christ is King? And is this the one? Yeah, so how is saying Christ is King anti-Semitic, says the CEO, Jeremy Boring of Daily Wire. We've had him on. I actually really enjoyed the conversation we had. The same way anything becomes anti-Semitic when it is used for the purpose of expressing anti-Semitism. It's like asking, how does a shovel become a murder weapon? When it is used to murder someone, this isn't hard. A shovel is not innately a murder weapon. Saying Christ is King is not innately anti-Semitic. It's all about how a thing is used. Saying eat some cornbread is not racist if I say to my 3-year-old when she is refusing a dinner. If I start saying it to a response on X post by black commentators I don't like, it has taken on a meaning beyond what is innate. In other words, it is connotatively racist, not how do you pronounce that word? Denotatively racist. So to Christ is King may be anti-Semitic in connotation while not in denotation when it is used to express anti-Semitism. When did this become so? It has always been so. It is so. Yes, innately. Additionally, saying Christ is King for an evil purpose, like using it as a weapon to express you. I mean, it's just
what the hell?
You could have stopped a long time.
That's asking ChatGPT.
Buddy. So.
That's asking ChatGPT.
Anyways, I haven't commented on this. I'll give my thoughts here. Vinny, what are your thoughts about what's going on here with Dave?
Okay, so before they give their thoughts on that, that is how they feel about the Christ is King comments. And quite simply, they see it as being, as a weapon against the Jews, because they see that Christianity or Christ being superior to Judaism. And so they say when you see that it is Christ the King, it may be harmless at first, but when used in certain contexts and used in it's seen as quite simply, something to slam a certain religion being and it can be deemed anti-Semitic. So again, it's how it's used, as was previously stated here. Let me just rewind that. Let me just go back to part here. Here we go. Yes, okay. So, yes. You're right. Yes. All right, here we go. Perfect.
Buddy.
Okay, so, before I go there, I quote, additionally, saying Christ is King for an evil purpose, like using it as a weapon to express your hatred or disdain for the Jews, is a grave sin. It plainly violates the third commandment. Thou shalt not carry forth the name of Lord God in vain. So, what is overtly being saying here is that you're using Christ's name in vain, and that is insulting the Jewish religion. Now, if you haven't, I'll give my view on Candace Owens at the end of the show. But that's how the head, Mr. John Boring, I believe his name is, Mr. Boring, deemed. There we go. Jeremy Boring, yes, Jeremy Boring deemed the Christ is King sentiment, and he said it was a weapon against the Jews, and was deemed anti-Semitic, which, I mean. Yeah. One could take one side to it, but for that to be the last straw, I mean, listen. However you want to run your business, you run your business. That's plain and simple. But again, this is can be considered tame to what Candace Owens could say, which is really saying like I hate Jews and anything derogatory as such. I mean, you can go in that direction. However, with things being, with this being anti-Semitic, with that being deemed anti-Semitic, one could take that vein, and Mr. Boring and Daily Wire decided to part ways with Candace Owens. However, Candace Owens has said worse, but they deemed it under the guise of free speech, and she was allowed to stay. Well, there's a bit of a ratings war here, but I think this is the bridge too far, and they decided to move away from Candace Owens, and it's their right to do so. I don't know if this is a proper dismissal, but nonetheless, that is what they did. That is exactly what they did. So again, let's hear some of the views from the evaluative panel with regards to if indeed, she was right to say such a thing. So let's go.
Man, and listen, let's all be honest with each other. I still, to this day, have not found one person, not one, that can have any critical, negative thoughts about what's happening with Israel and Palestine and not be thrown under the bus and considered an anti-Semite. It's as if Israel can't do anything wrong. And if you do say one thing about Netanyahu or you say something about the tactics, it's automatically you're anti-Semitic. What's happening, that Rabbi
let me preface that by saying let me stop this rant for a second and say this. Candace Owens has come out and overtly and publicly denounced the war in the West Bank. Believes that the war should end, and that Israelis / Jews have been very, very nasty in terms of the war, and has resulted in the deaths of thousands of Palestinians. So again, she's on the side of Palestinians and wishes the war should end. So that's her view. So again, with that in mind, you think that that would be a point of contention with those running Daily Wire, who are indeed coincidentally Jewish, and so they would take umbrage to that and decided to add all the pieces together and decide to let her go, allegedly. But let's get on with this.
Mooley, who is just, the more and more he speaks, the more and more people are turning away. Look at this embarrassed. This is the video that he made. Okay, by the way, he's a rabbi, and I wanted to ask you, Adam, because I literally, genuinely have zero idea. I'm a Christian. Our priests are, they're not allowed to be involved with writing sex books or selling lubes or whatever the hell his sex.
Play this clip. First, see this clip.
This is what he does.
Hi everybody, Purim is a day of celebration. We feel bad for Candace Owens that she lost her job, so I figure with her image of what Jews are supposed to look like, why not at least validate her? I am dressed up as a Candace Owens Jew. Now this is not a Christian child, it's a Jewish child. But if it would be, I got my Christian blood.
What a disgusting
spicy, delicious. I got my Jewish nose. I have filth, because Jews are all filth. And more than anything else, what does 80 have? Money! Yeah, we Jews are all about money!
All about the Benjamins.
Wait, all about the Benjamins. Wait, I'm getting a little bit thirsty. Where's the matzah? I don't want to finish the whole thing and not mix it into the matzah. So can someone just bring me, she did say that I was getting,
what a weird
like that
process,
tweet.
by the way. It's kind of disturbing. You go on the bottom on the clip, there's videos.
That's how part of the Jewish population is viewing the Candace Owens words in the sense that they don't like what she had to say, especially those of the staunch Jewish faith, and they felt that the ousting of a Jew was justified. Now again, if you speak about said religion or said people of religion, it has been allegedly known that you are ostracized from public view and from the public eye. See Kanye West. Okay, so again, they don't take kindly to such sentiments, even if in a form that could be misconstrued. But then again, yeah, it means a lot more. So anything that's taken against the Jewish faith or the Jewish people or Israel in general or any Jewish person, well, okay, let's not talk about the black people because that's a whole other thing. African Jews, that's a whole other thing. But that is seen as, well, that's not to be tolerated, and people are canceled, aka lose their careers because of that. That's why it's pretty much known in social / entertainment circles / business circles not to insult Jews. So let's continue with this.
Of him grinding a 12-year-old boy sitting on top of
grinding boys. Like, by the way, those kids, what do you think those kids are saying and thinking? And it's like, bro, if you followed what Candace was saying, if you followed this entire story, all she was asking was questions. And she was also saying, you know what? What's going on? When is enough? How many innocent children have to die? The fight, like, this guy's been going after Candace.
Oh, do you remember Rabbi Shmuley, the person who was involved in the altercation that you could see on YouTube? Let me see if there's anybody here on YouTube. Let me just even check that. Yeah, we're good. And yes, we're back. So so Rabbi Shmuley, who was engaged in the dress, in the costume there, in terms of a Jew who loves Candace Owens, she. They consider a stereotypical Jewish person. It is the reason why he's in such said costume is because it's Purim. Purim is Jewish Halloween, which happens around this time of year in May and April. So again, they have these sort of Purim parties, as Rabbi Shmuley, noted Jewish defender and debater, also decided to get in the guise of what Candace Owens truly hates about the Jews. So again, it's sort of a satirical look at a Jew, unfortunately. But again, let's hear the views of the Valuetainment panel.
Because again, you cannot say anything. You cannot
Rob,
be
can
critical.
you pull up the clip of how this got started? I think this got started with Ben Shapiro being recorded on camera.
Yep, standing on the table.
I don't
with
know what
his shoes on.
Can you pull up that clip? I think that's how this whole thing started. I don't know if you'll find it or not. While you're looking for that, Tom, what are your thoughts about this here?
So, I don't want to talk about that rabbi and that disgusting, caricature that he portrayed there. If anybody did that about any other group in any other way, you'd be subject to such response and even attempts to cancel and all that. So let's set that aside. I look at it this way. Jeremy and Ben run a media company. They're the bosses. They employ Candace. Candace does her shows. Jeremy and Ben have positions on things in their media company. Candace ends up counter to Ben on some positions. The CEO can say, you know what, Candace, you have the freedom to say what you want, but on our show here on that, I disagree with you. And you know what? I disagree for the following reasons. You know what? Maybe this isn't the best place for you. Happens at Salem Broadcasting. It happens at a lot of places. That's how Rush Limbaugh ended up on his own network. This happens in media all the time. Good CEOs go behind closed doors and sit down with people and say, maybe this isn't working out. Maybe we shouldn't do this. Why don't we take care of it like this? Instead, I fault Ben. You're the founder or co-founder, whatever you and Jeremy refer to that as, and you were the CEO or are the CEO or have the influence of the CEO, and you make a comment about one of your employees in a public way. And suddenly you spark and this thing spills out in public. And I don't think that was particularly good management, and I don't think that was particularly good leadership, and it ends with the employee leaving. I kind of boil it down that simple, Pat.
And what about Tom when she says Christ is King? Where do you see the anti-Semitism? No matter how she did, all she did was post that.
All the rest of the subpoints, how they play out, it's going to be oh, well, that's like this or this is like that. That's like this. Once you play it out and you start what I call phrase picking and saying, well, that on that day in that way was anti-Semitic, or this in this day wasn't very nice, or this on this day wasn't supportive of leadership. You know what no one is saying? No one's backing up and saying, hey, Ben, hey, Jeremy, you're running a company. Aren't you the leaders? Why are you doing this thing in public? If you want to build your media company and build things what you stand for, you've had some really good films that have come out making very important points. Why don't you guys just kind of calm down, go behind closed doors, and have a conversation with each other and figure it out? Why spill this out in public this?
So Rob, if you
Very good point there made by the Tim Candace. I never did catch his name. That this should have been a closed door policy. But clearly, they wanted to make a public exercise of this. They wanted to take this they wanted to, make an example of Candace Owens. So they decided to, hey, let us fire her in public and and give them the reasons, and it's not with amicable and without amicability on both on their side. And quite simply, it acts as a bit shameless, and he has a right to say that. I mean, it could have been done with a little more discretion and a little more candor and tact, but they decided to take it public, which is, I think how things with the comments of Ben Shapiro coming up, we'll show you the reason why. Let's continue with this.
you can play the first clip, if you have this one, play this clip, because this is how it starts, right? Play this.
And I think she's been absolutely disgraceful. I think that her faux sophistication on these particular issues has been ridiculous. It's not faux sophistication, it's ridiculous. Everybody can see the moves that she's making and the things that she's saying, and I find them disreputable.
So again, and as you can see from Ben Shapiro there, clearly he's speaking to the base, which is, Israeli Jews or Jews of Caucasian color. And he is stating that, quite simply, this is baseless. These are horrible statements, and they should never have been made in public. And I'm paraphrasing here. And that she should be punished and vilified for said statements. And that was Ben Shapiro's idea all along, especially at a time of war in the West Bank. Any sort of sentiment, people are a little more sensitive at these times, and anything sent with a bit of edge and sent with can be taken as negative. Of course, people are going to come in and make Jews may come in and have various type views, but for the most part, they'll be horrified by said statements and wish for some sort of retribution and response from the powers that be, and that's exactly what happened to Candace Owens. But let's continue with this.
Right after this, comments are made. The next day, she's on Tucker Carlson, and this wasn't obviously planned. You don't just go on Tucker Carlson the next day because Tucker's got a schedule, she's got a schedule. This was probably booked 6 weeks or 2 months in advance. Like we had Dave Rubin the other day, the day before. Yep. The market's like, oh, did Dave reach out to come on today? No, we had Dave booked how many weeks prior to that, Rob? Like,
it was a while, about a month.
About a month prior to that it was booked, and it came with the calendar. Play this clip here with Candace.
Call somebody, quote, absolutely disgraceful, particularly a coworker, seems like a pretty big step. And I really don't know the background here. What is that about?
There isn't much of a background. I saw the video when everybody else saw it when I woke up.
No one warned you about it.
Nobody warned me about it. It looks like maybe he didn't know he was being recorded. It looks like it was some sort of a private event. I got no clarity on the issue that he was particularly speaking on. And in what was said, I can't respond to it beyond what he's saying because it's just ad hominem attack. I don't know.
Because it's not, we disagree.
Well, again, which lets you know that anywhere you are in public, you got to know that you are live, that you are always on camera, that you are always on the microphone, that you will be recorded in some way, shape, or form, especially in a public place and at a venue such as the one Ben Shapiro was seen at. So again, I think he should have used much more candor with his words. However, he didn't, and so this got back to Candace Owens, and this is the response.
I don't think she's correct, or maybe she doesn't know what she's talking about. It's absolutely disgraceful.
Yeah. Exactly. And so I can't respond to it on a level of intellect because there's nothing that he has expressed at least in that short clip, that he fundamentally disagrees with in terms of what I said. But I will say that I'm not going to respond with the same ad hominem attacks. Yes. I don't think it helps further discussion. And if that was me that was caught on a video saying that about colleagues that I work with, I would be embarrassed. So I think that the video speaks more to Ben's character than it speaks to mine.
Has he texted you to apologize or explain or anything?
And again, you can see now that the rift really began there. It really, the writing was on the wall. And this was only going to escalate any further unless there were talks to tamper this behavior down, but it never did. And eventually, the Christ is King comment came out, and you see what happens next. Let's go.
No, nothing. I haven't heard a single word. It just was sort of something that he said. And you know what? Ben and I have many disagreements, so I don't think that that's particularly something that's interesting. We disagreed on the COVID vaccine. We disagreed on Ukraine and Russia. He has taken virtually every stance that has been the opposite of mine on every issue over the last 5 years. So I don't think that that's particularly remarkable.
Really, I didn't remember that.
Yeah, he was pro the COVID vaccine. I was anti the vaccine.
I'll give my thoughts, and then Adam, I'll come to you.
Sure.
Okay. So here's kind of how I process this. I enjoy watching Candace a lot. I enjoy watching Tucker, and I enjoy watching Ben Shapiro. There's been things
to be fair,
I've agreed and disagreed on with.
To be fair, just to let you know, Valuetainment is sort of a conservative YouTube channel, and again, they push conservative values. So when they say they're in lockstep with Daily Wire and Ben Shapiro and Candace Owens, you know that they're speaking. They are more of a conservative base, quite simply. And again, they are very much Trump supporters, to be fair. But again, they do give a fair shake to people with differing views and let them have their say. However, they do take a conservative slant in terms of their outlook on certain politics and viewpoints. Let's go.
Everybody, when you see something like this happen, you don't want to see something like this happen. But it's from more the strategic standpoint. When I watch this, I see a couple different things. One is the way this was handled, with Candace saying what she said, and then privately calling her out disgraceful in an event, and you guys disagree on certain issues politically. Okay, no problem. There's nothing wrong with that. That's okay. We sit here on the podcast today, me and Adam disagree, and then Adam and Vinny will disagree. Adam and Vinny, whatever it is, we'll have the disagreements, we'll hash it out, we'll move on, and it's totally fine. Ben Shapiro, to me, like I said to Dave Rubin, is a number one voice for the Jewish community worldwide. I don't think he's got a louder voice. Nobody's got a louder voice than he does. Very influential. But Jeremy Boring, it's a different story if the CEO, Jeremy Boring, putting himself in a position like this, that he defends automatically Ben Shapiro, and the positions she takes with Christ is King. There's so many different elements here to unpack. Christ is King. Okay, people can have differences in their faith. You can have a difference in your faith on what you think with Jesus, what you think with Jews, Christians, Scientology. I was in an office for 3 years, and I was working with half the office were all Scientologists. I was in another office where everybody was Mormon, LDS, Joseph Smith, Book of Mormon. Everything we talked about was that. And we were able to coexist. There is nothing wrong with that if debate is the issue. The position Daily Wire took, which is going to be very interesting to see how that whole organization is going to react to it. Jeremy Boring's moves are coming across more as being a manager to Ben Shapiro, and only Ben Shapiro, than a Dana White being put in a position to manage and drive a company. Now, if he makes this decision as the CEO, I don't know if they have a board. I don't know if the board has a voice. I know the Wilkes brothers, who are this billionaire family that have been investors in their organization. They've been investors in PragerU organization. They've been investors in many different organizations. Their faith, if I'm not mistaken, the Wilkes brothers, Rob, if you can pull them up, I think they're one of those, what's that, not 7 Day, but Tom, the Jews for Jesus organization, which they're...
Messianic Jews?
It's called the Assembly of Yahweh 7 Day, which...
7 Day Adventists?
Which they are Jews for Jesus type of a organization, which these are the founders, these are the investors that are within the organization. When you make a position like that, and you're defending Ben Shapiro the way you did, and you're obviously going against anybody that says Christ is king, and one of their talents comes out 3 days ago. I don't know what his name is. He makes a video saying Christ is king is anti-Semitic. Rob, if you have that clip, I know you have this clip, if you can send it to Rob. You watch all of this stuff. This is the one. If you can play this clip, go on and play this clip. What is his name? Clavon?
When I did this, by the way, the priest who baptized me said, Christians won't accept you. You'll still be a Jew. And I said, well, I am that. That's my race. I'm a Jew. I'm proud of my race. It's a great race. It's done many, many great things, including write the Bible. And, I am a Jew. But that hasn't happened at all. Christians have welcomed me with open arms, except this Christ the King anti-Semitic crowd. Oh, God. Christ is the King. And one day, every knee will bow and recognize it, because he's not just my king, he's king of the universe. But when you use that phrase to mean that God has abandoned his chosen people, the Jews, through whom he came into this world incarnate, and that he's broken his promises, his covenant with the Jews, you are quoting scripture like Satan does in the Bible. You're quoting scripture.
What are you? Let me tell you, that is super heavy.
Oh my!
That is super heavy when you make a comment like that. And
yeah, I mean that's the extent to which, even Christian Jews or Jewish Christians. Anyways, I think it's Christian Jews, because they consider the Jewish faith. Well, some would see it as a faith, some see it as a race of people. So again, that's neither here nor there. But again, I'll leave it at that, because if it's a race of people, then what are Black Jews? What are African Jews then? So, that's for you to decide, and that's for you to interpret. But again, when you hear a sentence like that, where a man would take it so far as to say Christ is king against the Jews is to issue is to quote the Bible like the devil. Yeah, it's a bit, is it taking a sledgehammer to crack a nut? He's taking things a bit too far there in terms of, considering Candace was a conduit of Satan, an emissary of Satan. I don't know. I don't think that'll age well in his part, and I think may want to walk that back in future. However, that's how he felt right then and there. But it is quite the seriously damaging sentiment and opinion of this gentleman. I'm sorry, I did not get his name. Let me just go back here. But I think they'll say it in full time anyways. But again, it's quite damning to call Candace Owens an emissary of Satan by saying Christ is king. But again, some would see it as harmless, some would see it as definitely more than that. Let's continue this.
By the way, you know where this goes? Let me tell you where this goes. So it would have been different if Jeremy takes a position to say, yeah, we have different denominations here. Everybody has the right to defend whatever faith and religion they have. And, and by the way, this guy used to be the pastor for, I think, what is the Republican club in Hollywood, Tom,
Friends of Abe?
Friends of Abe, right? I think he was one of the founders, and he was the pastor of that group, if I'm not mistaken. Jeremy Boring.
With Kelsey Grammer.
Yes.
Oh, that is Jeremy Boring. Sorry about that. That is indeed Jeremy Boring. Sorry about that. The other person you just heard is the head of Daily Wire. He called Candace Owens, yes. Well, he did not appreciate. Let's say that he did not appreciate what Candace Owens had to say when she said Christ is king, and she meant it was derogatory towards the Jewish faith. Yes, there you go. Thank you, Di Giotto. Yes, African Jews are the original Jews, but don't tell them. Don't tell them. Don't tell them. Listen. You tell them in Israel, they'll get very, very upset. I would keep that to yourself. I would mention that to a few people that that you can safely and in confidence mention such things. You have said something else here. Why people alter the Bible to serve their own needs and manipulate society. But remember, the Jewish faith is indeed a race of its own, according to Mr. Buring. He thinks that, but again, you must take time to think about said ideals. because you could get canceled, Dijato. And again, it's thank you very much for your mention of that and your participation in the show. Please keep the comments coming. Thank you very much for joining me on Talk Live on IG, YouTube. We're doing a special time here, a late night Talk Live. And we're talking about Candace Owens, modern Black Queen for Christ the King. Yes, indeed. With a question mark on the end of that. Let's have this continue.
Within this space, he's a heavyweight on what he did. There you go, Executive Director Jeremy Boring. I think he was their pastor, so Christian. He's well-read on the faith and all this other stuff. So, I don't know. When you handle it that way, what you're pinning your brand as is, I will 100% defend Ben Shapiro, and that is it. And it's going to be very hard for other people want to coexist. Now, they may well sit there and say, we can lose everybody, but as long as we have me and Ben, we're going to be all right, and we'll go till the very end. Great. It's going to be tough to have other people want to coexist if you brand yourself that way. It's very difficult. Now, they may also look at Candace, because if you look at their lineup, Ben is considered an intellect. Jordan Peterson considered an intellect, right? A lot of these guys may be considered an intellect. Maybe to them, they don't view Candace as an intellect. Maybe they look at Candace and say, she lacks intellect. She is not as scholarly educated on the history of this and this and that and 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 that's who it is. Well, I think America.
Well, sorry, that was that Andrew Clavin? I think that was his name is. I'm kidding. No, that's a totally other thing. But again, that's Andrew Clavin. Yes, he's a man of many talents. Andrew Clavin show, Daily Wire. Okay, so maybe that's Andrew Clavin that was said that considered Candace Owens a reader of the Bible akin to the devil himself. But again, I would say this. I would definitely say this. With regards to Candace Owens, as you can see, she was considered not a scholarly individual there, which is a slightly racial slant on things. I thought, I mean, there's no one black in the room to speak up for that. But again, he considered Ben Shapiro a scholarly individual, considered Andrew Clavin a scholarly individual. He considered Mr. Boring a scholarly individual, but not Candace Owens. Now, no matter what you think about her, you may hate her guts, but at the end of the day, I think she's a very sharp, astute, erudite individual. Now, to consider her unscholarly, it's a bit of a slight against her. Now, I don't know if it's a slight against her womanhood or slight against her race, but that didn't sit well with me, but we'll continue with this.
It probably relates more to somebody like her and everybody else who thinks they are the intellect, because that is a form of being an elitist if you think everything you do is right and you're not willing to have those types of conversations with others. So I actually don't know the decision they made. However, here's how business works. Tom, you and I know this. If your decisions, say whatever number they have, a lot of people online are throwing around the number that their top line revenue is $200 to $250 million per year. Okay, it's a real business. $200 to $250 million per year. No problem. They got a lot of big projects going on. I think most of them are committed for movies, this, and that. Okay, no problem. Everyone's going to see the effect of Candace Owens, what it's going to cost in subscribership, in dollar amount, in revenue. Maybe they're right. Maybe she's right. Market's going to decide. But if you make too many decisions like this and it's one-sided and you oust the other side, it feels like if I'm going here, I can only be on one side. And if I'm not safe because I could go somewhere else. The series of the way they made their decisions is questionable. But every time you run a business, I'm also on the other side when I run a business, and every decision we make, it's easy to target. Hey, look at what they did with the insurance company. Look what they did. And the PAC's wrong. And this is why they're losing. And people are leaving. And da-da-da. It's so easy to also take shots while you're actually a person running the business. It is very hard to run a company. It is very hard to start a company and grow to $250 million, whatever the top line revenue is, and have the employees, and especially in a space that you're giving your opinions. It has got to be super hard, and you're constantly going to be having shots being taken at you, but that's the job you chose to have. The market will look at you and see, if you think this was the right decision to make, Let's see how the market reacts to it, and they will with numbers, with subscribers, and dollars. Tom.
And that's the market. And I've been very clear. Daily Wire has made some great content, great films that I think need to be made that are very helpful to their audience. What I look at is the how. And Pat, I've watched you over the years. You've had very difficult discussions have had to happen with some sales leaders. I've never seen you put out a tweet that ripped.
Let's move this
not
forward.
been had, and maybe they're having it right now. I don't even know what's. But the point is, it's a little bit strange. But the market will react, and we'll see what they're going to say. See what they're going to say, Adam.
Excellent point there, mate. I had to speed that up just a little bit just to get to the point of the topic, the point of the conversation. But what Mr. Peter Bet David said right there is that the market will decide. The market will dictate how this decision will be in terms of the eyes of the public, in terms of the eyes of the company that is Daily Wire. Good, bad, or indifferent. We'll see in terms of subscribers. We'll see in terms of views. We'll see in terms of memberships. So again, there'll be a splitting of a few people. I think a lot more conservative black viewers will go away from the Daily Wire now that Candace Owens is out of there, because I think she brought a lot of black conservative female eyes towards such a platform and vote for her in support of her. So again, her not being there will take away that audience. Will it add to another? We'll see. But again, this may count economically, fiscally, monetarily in terms of subscription and dollars at the end of the day, and advertising dollars, to be fair. So let's hear what another Jewish individual had to say about this. Christ the King comment, and you'll be surprised by it. Let's go.
All right. Well, we've spent some good amount of time with Candace, and let me just say off top, I've enjoyed my time with Candace. I thought she was great. We've done content, we've done interviews, we did the live podcast.
The world is becoming racialized. I don't know. I think if you, thank you for the comment, Gidato. I think if you are in the cities, I think the world is becoming way more cosmopolitan. I've discussed this on many a show regarding Talk Live in terms of interracial marriage, how it's on the way up, actually, rather than on the way down. And the world is becoming a much more homogeneous place, especially in the cities. So I would disagree on that certain point. In terms of certain other places, yeah, there could be an issue, especially with the Jewish homeland now that it's trying to rid itself of Palestinians and Hamas et al. And making that into a total Jewish state. Funds regarding a complete Jewish state and its prognosis into the next few years. Sees that on the contrary, but as the world gets larger and the population gets larger and people, and there's a freedom of movement of people and trade and families and societies, the world is indeed becoming less racialized, and so it's contrary to your statement. Let's continue with this.
Really enjoy Candace. She has problems with certain individuals, not groups. And I think that's a distinguishment everyone needs to make. I often say some of my favorite people in the world are Jews. Some of my least favorite people in the world are Jews. Some of my favorite people in the world are Mexicans. Least favorite, Mexicans. Goes down the list, Muslims, Arabs, Christians, Catholics, all that. They have problems with individuals. The thing with Ben and Candace.
If you would have said Assyrian or Armenian,
this shit would have been ugly real quick.
We all know about those Assyrians.
Right.
Yeah.
We all know about the Assyrians. They're very hospitable and hung. But we all
stupid. Just finish.
Private information.
Sorry.
No, why are you gonna no?
Go ahead.
Guys,
make your point.
We've all seen relationships that publicly, like I'm talking dating, husband, wife, where they're fighting, it's ugly. It's like, if this is what's going on in public, what we see, what in the world is happening behind closed doors? Once the Ben and Candace thing started going on, I think we all knew this thing was not
Yeah.
going to last long. It was inevitable.
And what was it? It was the Israel
Yeah,
conflict.
well, and I'll get into the policy difference in a second. So, number one, the rabbi situation. One rabbi doesn't speak for an entire religion. This guy is an entertainer at first and foremost. That's what he is.
Shmuley,
exactly. What people don't know is that why is he dressed up like this? Did he just decide one day be a great costume? The current holiday that is going on in the Jewish world is called Purim. Purim is the Jewish Halloween. So this was his cute little Halloween thing. I think it's beneath a rabbi. I think any rabbi of mine should never do anything like this. But if we want to go down the slippery slope of religious leaders doing the wrong things...
Just to let you know, that is Adam Sosnick. He runs the SOS podcast on Valuetainment and on YouTube. I would subscribe to that. It has a lot of red pill content, and it is, again, a really informative channel if you're into that sort of thing. But again, as you can see, he's Jewish himself, Adam Sosnick. And he... disagree with what Rabbi Shmuley had to say with regards to his Purim costume, which adheres to the hate of Jews and all of their ills. So again, so people can disagree, and so people of a religion can disagree, as has happened with this Israel-Hamas war. A lot of Jews come on both sides. A lot of supporters of Palestine have come on both sides as well. So again, it's not just black and white. There are many shades of gray in terms of this conversation. Let's continue.
Okay, your Catholic priests, they don't represent every Catholic person out there. Don't get me started on the imams calling for jihad. They don't represent every Muslim Arab out there. So this guy doesn't represent Judaism or Israel. He represents himself. That's it, period. Number two, Candace, she did about a month ago, she outlined exactly where she stood on this overall topic. And the first 10 minutes, she talked about her entire life. She was surrounded by Jewish friends. My best friend is Jewish. I went to more Rosh Hashanah dinners than any non-Jew should ever go to. My first job in finance, Jewish person. She said she lived and dated with a guy who was Jewish. So I don't think someone like that just goes down to anti-Semite.
That in and of itself tells a story. I'll let you hand that out. But anyways, nonetheless, we're all about inclusion here. We're all about fellowship, friendship, love, and beauty at the end of the day. So we're going to leave that there. I'll leave that to your own conclusion. But if you think of what I'm thinking, okay. It's an old saying. I'll say this. Show me your friends and I'll tell you who you are. I'll leave it there.
Right. I think she's fighting specifically about policy disagreements, specifically with Ben. She talked about the COVID thing. She talked about the Russia thing. She talked about the Ukraine thing. She talked about the Israel thing. At the end of the day, she's on the isolationist camp. Don't do anything. Don't fund anything. Ben is clearly on the interventionist camp. Fund this. War in Israel, war in Russia. That's what they had a disagreement on. They could not work that out. I believe adamantly in free speech. There's people on this chat right now calling me a gay Jew. Okay? Only one of those things is true, buddy. I'm a proud Jew.
I actually just messaged it in the chat too.
Gotcha. Sorry. Guys, keep it coming. I love the haters. I love the haters.
Adam, you have 1 minute
It's amazing.
left.
It's fine. I'm totally cool with rhetoric. Where it gets very ugly is when rhetoric turns into actual violence. So, Rob, if you want to show these stats, I don't give a shit what you say, but when we start talking about hate crimes, actual hate crimes, nobody is doing it like how they do to the Jews. You see that big blue number in the middle of the pie? That's the Jewish hate crimes.
And where's it? That's worldwide or United States?
This is worldwide. Okay. So there's Muslims in there. There's Christians in there. Jehovah's Witnesses. Rob, you can check this. Rob could check it on that. By the way,
that's a blurry ass photo.
There's a million different stats.
Oh, I believe it. I just want to know who it's from so we can tell the audience.
Rob could do that. Check that, Rob. So fact check that.
I believe it's CNN.
Okay.
Weird.
Well, if they said it, it can't be true, obviously.
Yeah, obviously.
So I believe that Candace should say whatever the hell she wants to say. I believe you, the haters out there, should say whatever you want to say. At the end of the day, as far as a business situation goes, imagine me sitting next to PBD for 4 years now, and all I talked about was, I hate capitalism, I love DEI, I love wokeness, my hero's Dylan Mulvaney. I probably wouldn't be here too long. And that's what happened with...
Wait, you don't... All that is not your...
Yeah, but the straw that broke the camel's back was the one thing. I think calling her anti-Semitic is complete BS, and then searching for shit in podcasts with the Rabbi Barkley when she goes, yeah, the Shmuley's daughter's a hag, and he goes, wait a minute, did you know in 1700 I understand anti-Semitism, but to be searching and digging to make that happen, because that's the straw was anything against Israel.
I could give two shits about what that one rabbi had to say to Candace.
But these are one rabbis that cost her job.
Okay, so
her in conversation.
Roll the tape of all the imams calling to kill the Jews. We're going to be here for the next 10 years.
We're talking about Candace Owens.
But my point is this. Hey, words are not violence. Separate the two. The bottom line is this. Candace is looking for a new job. I'm sure there's plenty of reputable media companies that would love to have her.
Okay, we'll leave it there, ladies and gentlemen. So as you heard from the Valuetainment podcast, and shout out to Valuetainment, if you ever get a chance, like and subscribe to them. Again, more of a conservative viewpoint on the news and pop culture, led by Peter David, as you see there on your screen. But again, it's I think he's right on two fronts. Candace is open to her opinions. That's the first thing. I think that indeed, I believe that this was handled incorrectly. What the hell that is? Anyways, get that out of there. I believe that Daily Wire handled this firing very, very much incorrectly and out of emotion rather than out of economic calculation and focus. And quite simply, the markets will decide. The markets will decide whether this will be seen as a good move or a bad move on the part of Valuetainment, on the part of Daily Wire. So thank you, Daily Wire, for that. So let's get to the before we go to the black side of things. Well, actually, yeah. Before we get to the black side of things, and also how progressives and liberals view the comments of Candace Owens. Let's get to how Mr. Shapiro himself views the firing itself, because he was part of the actual decision making in group that made the decision to fire Candace Owens. So let's go here to Piers Morgan v. Ben Shapiro. This just happened about 3 days ago. Shout out to Piers Morgan, a fellow Gooner, such as myself. Shout out to the Gooners. They have a big game on Saturday. So again, I wish they finally see the title that they've been so looking for the last 20 years. And I hope the win on Sunday will be in furtherance of that. So shout out to Piers Morgan, who's a fellow Gooner, such as myself. Now, he had a chat with Ben Shapiro, part of the decision-making group that fired Candace Owens. Now, again, he's Ben Shapiro has many views on a myriad of different subjects. However, in this capacity, he takes a slightly different view, as you will see right now here on Piers Morgan Uncensored, Piers Morgan v. Ben Shapiro podcast day, and this was 3 days ago. Let's get into it. On the subject of Candace Owens firing.
Palestinian Authority, or with Hamas, has been obviously proved false by the fact that Israel literally withdrew all IDF forces from the Gaza Strip in 2005. Hamas took control. They spent the last 20 years turning it into a giant terror base. From the Israeli perspective, my assumption is that what they are figuring is degrade Hamas's military capacity such that they cannot be an offensive threat to the state of Israel, and then try to enact some sort of military control of the area sufficient to prevent any future threat from arising from that area. I'm sure that Israel would love to hand the area over to Egypt. Egypt says no. Egypt doesn't want any part of it. Israel would love to hand it over to Jordan. Jordan says no. Jordan doesn't want any part of it. Israel's tried to hand it over to the Saudis, to the UAE, to the United States, to literally anyone. No one wants to run that area specifically because the population is already quite radicalized and was radicalized before October 7th. And so what you're probably going to end up with, and I said this, I think, the first time I appeared on the show, which was shortly after October 7th in this context, what you're probably going to end up with is some form of joint military rule in the Gaza Strip in which Israel has the intelligence capacity to go in and conduct raids in terror hotbeds the same way that they do right now, for example, in the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, places like Jenin, places like Nablus. The IDF is constantly attempting to go in and root out terror cells in these particular areas. One of the big flaws that led to October 7th was the fact that Israel had no forces on the ground and no actual intelligence capability inside the Gaza Strip.
One of the consequences of this war has been a lot of very high passions on both sides, a lot of angry disagreements. You and your company have been at the center of a very high-profile one at the moment. With
here it is, ladies and gentlemen, here it is.
Left Daily Wire. Was she fired, or did she leave of her own volition?
I'm not going to speak to this topic, Piers.
At all?
At all.
You can't give me any insight into why she departed?
No hints, no nothing. I'm not going to speak to this.
Can I ask why?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, you heard it earlier on Talk Live that Ben Shapiro was quite loose at the lip with regards to Candace Owens' comments when he was in front of when he was in front of many of his faith at a gathering but again, when it comes to being in on such a platform such as Piers Morgan Uncensored, he turns around and decides to be tight-lipped. I don't know if he learned his lesson that the mic is always on and does not want to speak to decisions that he's already made. But he's already come out and not made the best of this situation in and of itself. And this could have been handled much better, but he decided to err on the side of caution and candor when it came to this as of now. So, a little too late, but, if he wants to be tight-lipped, he can be tight-lipped. But I want to continue this conversation because he has certain views on what Rabbi Shmuley had to say with regards to his behavior regarding Candace Owens' comments.
I mean, you can ask.
No, I'm not. You can ask why you don't want to say anything.
Again, you can ask.
I'm only curious because I know what a staunch defender of free speech you are, and it would surprise me if it had been someone's opinions that would make you want to part company with them. However contentious.
Suffice it to say, the only thing I will say is what I've said all along with regard to Candace or with regard to any of our other hosts. I am not in hiring and firing position with the Daily Wire. I'm a co-founder of the Daily Wire. I'm a co-owner of the Daily Wire. I'm not actually in management. Jeremy Boring and Caleb Robinson are in management positions with regard to Candace or anyone else. And as far as the free speech situation, what I will say is that no company has the obligation to literally pay anyone. The Daily Wire is a publisher. It is not a platform. I've never called for Candace or anyone else for that matter to be banned from YouTube, to be banned from X, to be banned from any platform. That's a different story. Obviously, when it comes to any publisher gets to make decisions.
Okay, well, this is where I have a problem with Ben, because he may say that he has nothing to do with Daily Wire decision making, but he does. You know that Ben Shapiro had a word in, let's say, Mr. Boring's show light and said, you know what? I don't exactly like what she had to say. Either it's her or me, and it's her. I would have no doubt that's the case. But he'll never come out in public to say that. He'll always try to take the high road and say, no, this is not my decision. Mr. Boring and et al. Have decided to let go of Candace. I have nothing to say about that. But he did. Deep down, he had influence in her firing. There's no doubt about that. He can try and say anything different, but he's never going to come out and say that in of himself because, again, he's incriminating himself. So, again, why would he do that when not willing? Anyways, let's continue.
About what it wishes to purvey and not.
I mean, I'm just not going to labour this, but one more point I would make is it's been reported extensively that the reason for her departure was because her comment had been perceived by people at the Daily Wire as anti-Semitic.
Again, I'm not going to comment on this, Piers.
Okay. Rabbi Shmuley, would you comment on him? Because Jeremy has actually commented on Rabbi Shmuley. So I've avoided commenting publicly on Rabbi Shmuley because, as far as I can tell, the man is an attention whore of the highest order. Is that the general position of the company on Mr. Shmuley?
I mean, that's my personal position for sure. I mean, I think that, Rabbi Shmuley happens to be a person with whom I agree on some matters related to, say, Middle East policy. And I also believe that his devotion to camera and notoriety have made him do some untethered things in recent days.
I mean, there's a clip, I'm just going to play it, and you can comment or otherwise, but it was extraordinary to me. We've had him on this show a few times, but I found this really quite extraordinary. Let's take a look.
Purim is a day of celebration. We feel bad for Candace Owens that she lost her job.
Again, sorry for the repetition, ladies and gentlemen. I just wanted to get Ben Shapiro's view of Rabbi Shmuley's.
I am dressed up as a Candace Owens Jew. Now, this is not a Christian child, this Jewish child. But if it would be, I got my Christian blood. Spicy, delicious. I got my Jewish nose. I have filth, because Jews are all filth. And more than anything else, what does 80 have?
Money!
I mean, what is your reaction to that clip?
I mean, the phrase in Hebrew is that's what we would call a chilul Hashem, right? It's a desecration of God's name, and that sort of behavior is disgusting in any context. Frankly, I don't know an Orthodox Jew who feels differently about that. Not one.
Do you think he should be given airtime anymore, Rabbi Shmuley?
I mean, I'm not going to make decisions about who should air him and who should not. What I will say is that that sort of behavior is untethered from reality and makes a mockery of much of the mission for people like me, which includes fighting anti-Semitism.
Yeah, but I get a lot of people, actually, after his most recent appearance here, just saying, this guy does not speak for most Jewish people like me. And they write in their droves, and they say, please stop having someone on.
Well, I mean, what he's doing there certainly doesn't speak for literally any Jew that I've heard of or know. I mean, I can't speak to his positions on Israel. Again, my positions on Israel speak for my positions on Israel, but that's a different story from dressing up in a Sturmer costume to mock anti-Semitism. I think that's quite counterproductive, and especially given the online discourse pretty negative in pretty much every way I can think of.
Yeah.
So again, Mr. Shapiro holds a quite solid line with regards to anti-Semitism, be it alleged anti-Semitism from Candace Owens or from Rabbi Shmuley. He's very much against it in all forms. So again, you got to give Jack his jacket about that. He totally admonishes Rabbi Shmuley's take on Judaism on Purim, the Jewish Halloween, and again, it's he's entitled to that opinion. But again, for him to say that he is, he has no say in regards to Candace Owens firing from the Daily Wire is a bit disingenuous, and he won't speak on that, but he knows deep down that is indeed the case. Allegedly, ladies and gentlemen. So, if we can move on here, because again, I do not want the slanders coming. So, here we go. What we're going to do is, we're going to take a more left-wing progressive view of the comments, because again, this is not Candace Owens' base at all, and this is coming from the Young Turks. The Young Turks is seen as a more progressive, left-wing sort of content package on YouTube. And again, they have another 5-8 million followers, and they are following on the comments of Andrew Klavan, who is one of the founders of Daily Wire. Do remember he's on? One of the hosts of Daily Wire. Let me say that. I don't want to say one of the founders, one of the hosts of Daily Wire. And again, he had. We're going to repeat. We're going to repeat what he had to say with regards to Candace Owens, calling her the meaning of the devil, devil incarnate. And again, we're gonna take the left wing view of things, and then we're gonna go towards both sides of the black viewpoint. All right, of the African diaspora viewpoint. Let's continue.
universe. But when you use that phrase to mean that God has abandoned his chosen people, the Jews,
that is Christ the King,
through whom he came into this world incarnate, and that he's broken his promises, his covenant with the Jews, you are quoting scripture like Satan does in the Bible.
What? Okay, so that was Daily Wire host Andrew Klavan. And Klavan is a Jew, but he actually converted to Christianity. And he's talking about a phrase, God is king, that Candace Owens tweeted after she found out that she was being let go from the Daily Wire.
Okay, let me move it forward a bit.
And
I just
that
want to
phrase
get
is now
this.
being called anti-Semitic. That's right. Wait for it. It's anti-Semitic, supposedly.
Let me move it forward a bit here.
Anti-Semitic the same way anything becomes anti-Semitic when it's used for the purpose of expressing anti-Semitism.
Yes.
It's like asking, how does a shovel become a murder weapon?
Okay,
when
we've
it is
already
used
been
to
to
murder,
those comments. Let's see what.
which I hate that tingle. Hate that, like, because we all know, again, the real reason that Candace Owens was let go and the real reason she's being called anti-Semitic now as opposed to before is because she's calling out Israel's actions in Gaza, calling them genocide, lamenting at the death of children. Again, if you guys need a refresher, this was back in November. Candace Owens comes this quicker than some friends of mine, says no government anywhere has the right to commit genocide ever. There's no justification for genocide. I can't believe this even needs to be said or is even considered the least bit controversial to state. I hate you.
So, again, that's Candace Owens' view on the war in the West Bank. She is very, very much pro-Palestinian. She doesn't believe the Israel should be waging war against Hamas. And, she's very much against the war. And, I think that, she's a right to free speech, but I know, it's alleged. But in my opinion, I think that it rubbed a lot of those at the Daily Wire the wrong way. It really did. And quite simply, that was the beginning of the end. Christ is King being the last straw. Let's continue.
For being right, Candace Owens. This is very painful. But Christ is King. And again, none of it makes sense because I actually don't think it makes sense to them.
So, if I'm reading what they're saying correctly, one, this is a bunch of fascinating aspects of it. But I think ultimately what they're saying is that we know her problem was with Ben Shapiro. We know it was about her feelings about how the Israeli government is carrying out their war against Hamas. And her invoking Christ as King is clearly a dig at her enemy at the Daily Wire, which is Ben Shapiro, a Jewish man. That's what it feels like they're trying to express there, which is hilarious to me for many reasons. But the main one for me is that the staunchest pro-Zionist people in America are these Zionist Christians who think the Jews should hold or own or whatever, be in control of that land of Israel, so that Jesus can come back and ultimately damn all those Jews to hell for not being Christ followers, by the way. But it's cool to be down with those folks because they serve the ends right now temporarily. But if you even peel back the first layer of Christian Zionism, it's anti-Semitic as hell. They think those people are going to be damned to hell because they don't love Jesus, but they need Jesus to come back. So they need those people to be over there in Israel and Palestine. It's just a hilarious sort of jujitsu and gymnastics these people have to do in order to even support some of this crazy thinking.
Well, and which is somehow was not anti-Semitic. Like the idea that all the Jews need to own all the land in Israel or in Palestine.
It's totally normal.
That's super normal so that they can die or convert. That's not anti-Semitic just because I want them to die or convert. Well, lastly, because I have to play this for you because this guy fascinates me. Andrew Klavan, who I didn't know was a thing. He, I guess, converted before the second coming of Christ.
Before he offers his viewpoint, I mean, it's the history of Israel. It's the history of the Holy Land altogether. Quite simply, Christians hate Jews because they believe that they killed Jesus, even though Jesus was a Jew. The Jews hate Christians because they don't believe that Christ was the Son of God and a representation of the Jewish people. And you know about the history of Muslims and Jews in and of itself. They hate each other's guts. So, well, I would say not allegedly. I'll say allegedly, and also that there have been some consensi with regards to Muslims and Jews coming together on many a different topic, and there are many sympathizers of Jewish people towards those at the West Bank, and that's not usually talked about, but it is true. However, it's let's have these comments continue here.
He converted before, and he goes on a little bit more about this Christ is King stuff, but listen to how he does it. He's saying ultimately that God, his Christian God, has a plan for Jews like Ben Shapiro, and then he throws in Jordan Peterson. I think Peterson's not actually, he's not a Jew and he's not really a Christian, but just listen to this last thing.
Christ is love, Christ is truth, Christ is the logos of the moral order. You follow love, you follow truth, you follow the moral order. You will find yourself ultimately at Jesus Christ's door. I don't worry about Ben and Jordan Peterson one little bit. And so when you spit Christ the King at them to insist that they have been rejected by the one who sent them to do the work that they're doing, no.
Okay, so he's taking offense at saying Christ is King. Candace Owens saying Christ is King, which she had no other. She doesn't seem like she had another intention about you're saying they're spitting this at Ben Shapiro for whatever reason, but simultaneously he's arguing that God, his Christian God, has a plan for Jews like Ben Shapiro to do their work ultimately. Because what? Because Christ is King, according to you. It's so weird. Which ultimately, this is the reason I wanted to watch that whole thing, is to say that anti-Semitism in this time, we've been gaslit to believe it's just in the eye of the beholder. And so long as one person is offended, that means that you did an anti-Semitism, when sometimes there's actually no grounds for it. That being said, Candace Owens is an anti-Semite. Straight up. I don't think that this tweet falls into her documented past of being an anti-Semite.
Look, those people hired Candace Owens to shuck and jive, tap dance, be a troll.
Okay, this is the beginning of the the hate for Candace Owens begins now. And you'll hear this from the more African side of YouTube and the social media, that Candace Owens is the tool of the quote-unquote devil and tool of the white man. Quite simply, Lord knows she married one. But again, this is a view of many an individual, many a group. Now, again, I will let my views be known later on, but just letting everybody know that this is indeed, a known fact. Now, again, this may not reach the mainstream because this is only within black spaces. However, to hear the shucking and jiving motif and to describe Candace Owens is not new. It is definitely not new, especially during 2020 and the George Floyd saga that took place at that time.
Put a black face on anti-blackness. There's a lot of money on it. However, she found out really quick, there's a narrow range you get to work within. You don't get to color outside of that line and think you get to still...
And do remember, Thomas Sowell is a part of that group as well. And I'm in total agreement with Thomas Sowell. But again, he can be seen as a shucker and a jiver by many a black individual because they don't agree with his conservative viewpoint. So, slippery slope. Let's go.
the black face of cooning on the Daily Wire. It doesn't happen like that. You step out of line even a little bit, they're gonna spank you. And again, I really do think these people, they're like, yo, we hired, Candace Owens to be a troll, and she's trolling us with that Jesus is King. You're feeling it.
But only because she overstepped on Israel.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks.
There you go. Well done to the Young Turks on that and their take on Candace Owens. As you can see, it's more of a left-wing viewpoint. It's more of a progressive viewpoint on things. And they are not exactly fans of Candace Owens, and they believe that she is a tool of the white establishment that is at Daily Wire. And, it's again, it's hard to be conservative and black because there are not many people within that space, and with the likes of Thomas Sowell and the individual that we're going to feature next. But let me just say this: thank you very much for joining me on Talk live on IG and YouTube on this late night, the first late night Talk live show here on IG and YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Thank you for all of your love on IG, on YouTube, on TikTok. TikTok, I'm tracking big time, and I have to thank you for that. It's only going to get better from here, believe me. So let us move on to another black conservative. This is a great segue to another black conservative. That is Mr. Jason Whitlock. Yes, the former sports writer. National sports writer, and also and now conservative talk show host on his own Jason Whitlock show on YouTube, and again he's speaking. It's called Fearless with Jason Whitlock. So like and subscribe to Fearless and Jason Whitlock if you wish. Again, I leave it to you, but I think he offers some interesting viewpoints. To be fair, and especially on this, he is with I believe it's. He is with a co-host. I will grab the name in a bit. Oh, let me see. Hold on a second. Let me just grab her name right now. Just 1 second. No, there we go. Yes. So, again, I'm going to rewind this back to more or less the beginning and what it'll include what Joe Rogan had to say about the whole subject, which is interesting enough. But Jason gives a more conservative viewpoint on Candace Owens' sentiments, and you'll hear them right now on Talk Live.
This time, Candace does not come across as a believer. Let's play the clip.
Like the things that human beings fall for, right? So I had this idea when we were talking, because Charlie is an evangelical Christian. I'm not, right? I believe in
This super smart guy is an evangelical Christian.
Yes.
So does he believe like Jesus came back to life?
Yes.
Really?
Yes, he's an evangelical Christian.
So he believes that someone died,
and
then 3 days later, they came back to life, and that they walked on water and
I mean, you have to. I haven't really gotten into it with him because I'm not the person that should ever be like debating or talking about religion. It's not my like shtick.
So, that particularly that ending. It's not my shtick, man. Even 5 or 6 years doesn't land well. But anyway. People are using this to disqualify Candace and saying that a lot of her evangelicism now and the things she's saying now are a shtick. I disagree. I think things can change dramatically, particularly for a young person over the course of 5 or 6 years. But anyway, your thoughts about the controversy that Candace is involved in at the moment?
Well, Jason, if you don't know what year Cash Money Records is taking over for, then you ain't black. But seriously, when it comes to this whole crisis king thing, honestly, Jason, when she said it the first time, or when I saw her say it the first time a few months back.
There is Shamika Michelle, the co-host on the show anyway. So again, she's helping Jason Whitlock with the show. Let's continue.
I didn't really believe it simply because she hadn't been talking that way previously. Now, in all fairness, though, I will say people can find Christ. I do think that she said her husband is a believer. And so I think that people can find Christ and then all of a sudden just become very spirited and passionate about it. And so I do think that's a possibility. So I wouldn't count it out. I'm not the person to sit here and judge someone's faith or what they believe. I just know that, once you become in Christ, you are a new creature. And so because that's there and you have to be born again, it's possible for someone to change their ways and the things that they say.
The other thing that I think is a possibility is because I think she's now got 3 kids, and she's been married now for 3 or 4 years, I believe, and her husband, I believe, is a Catholic, and so I think all of these different events, a husband that's a believer, and then you start thinking about your 3 kids, and you got 3 kids, the connection with your kids. I'm sure you don't ever want it to end. And so the one way to guarantee it won't end is for you all to be believers, and you'll be connected even after death here on earth, in the earthly realm. And so I do think it's possible that she's just on fire right now for Christ. And I want to give her grace, even if she's making some missteps, because, in her argument and public feuding or going back and forth with Ben Shapiro, I'm not 1,000% sure she's handled this properly. I'm still thinking that through, but I want to give grace to someone who's just blossoming into their spiritual journey. And you can get on fire and you can make mistakes. And it seems like no one wants to give anybody any grace. And everybody, if someone makes a mistake or makes a misstep, they're now a disreputable human being, and they're anti-Semitic, or they're racist, or they're this or they're that. And they may just be early in their journey and on fire and making some mistakes that, we got to allow them some grace.
So, as you heard, the amount of graces that this woman is allowed from Jason Whitlock, clearly he is in the woman's corner, and he's taken Jason Whitlock's a conservative. And so he's taking the conservative viewpoint that, okay, she may have, her views may be taken the wrong way. Her actions may not speak to a Christian directive. However, she should be forgiven for her activities. She should be given grace, quote unquote, as he mentioned many a time, for her activities. And that's his take on things. He's saying that whatever she said she may have been misconstrued and misinterpreted for what she had to say. However, she had a right to see it, and she should be forgiven for saying it. So that is the long and short of it from Candace Owens. From Jason Whitlock, and that so that's more of a black conservative viewpoint. Being supportive of her, even if she has made mistakes and missteps in terms of her activities and her actions. I'll let the co-host make her final statements here.
I've always wanted to give Candace grace. I've seen a lot of people give her flack, black people saying that she's not black or she doesn't like the color of her skin. From the time I've come to really know who she is and some of the things that she said, I've wanted to give her grace simply because I think she's brilliant enough, she's well-spoken, she's interested enough for me to just watch how her life plays out. When I first came to know who she wasn't married. And so I have seen a change in her since she's gotten married and since she's had kids. And I am interested in seeing how her life plays out, just to see how she evolves as a woman, because I do think that she's a great deep thinker. figure, and I'm just interested in that. And so when I see some of these people that constantly come down on her and they're constantly criticizing her, some of them my age, I just feel like we should watch to see what happens. I don't think that I agree with everything she has said, as I don't agree with what everybody says all the time anyway, but I think she has enough good that I'm excited to see what happens. Most of the things she says, I think she's mostly right. And so she's never offended me in what she said. I have told people as they've come in my DMs and asked me, what do you think about Candace Owens? I understand their questions. I understand why some people or some Black people don't like her, but I haven't completely figured out if it's Candace or just the fact that so many Black people are led by emotion and not logic and fact. So I get that whole thing, but I think
wow, that's some fiery sentiment there from the co-host. She's saying that they are led by emotion and lack of clarity. Wow. But as you can hear from what she had to say, she agrees with Jason in terms of she needs to be given a bit of grace, but I think there's a tinge of you want to forgive Candace for what she had to say, so therefore she will get a pass, aka she won't be made accountable for what she had to say. Now, again, coming from a red pill perspective, that's a bit hard to take, but we have known to see that from most women. They don't want to make a woman accountable for her actions and her words, even as innocent as they are. So that slant can be taken with it. However, I'll give my views at the end of things. But again, to say Christ is king, she should be made fully accountable for these things. When somebody else's interpretation leads the commentary and then designate her an anti-Semite, it's a bit of a stretch, to be fair and frank. So I'll let her finish her comments.
She is worth watching and giving grace to, for sure.
And so
we'll leave that there with regards to that is the more Black conservative space and how they feel about the comments of Candace Owens. So again, I wish to thank Jason Whitlock for his participation in the show. Like and subscribe to Jason Whitlock. Fair use, fair use, fair use, as always. And so now, the star of the show, ladies and gentlemen, to be fair and frank, we have the more progressive, Black, conservative, Democratic viewpoint. And of course, it's going to be so entertaining because we are the great entertainers, aren't we? We are the great race of entertainers. So let us leave it here with Calvin Michaels and his viewpoints of Candace Owens. Nope, keep that foolery over there. The door is closed. Out here begging. It's incredible. I can't believe that I left that on, but anyways, nonetheless, we're gonna keep it moving. We're gonna keep it moving. So again, we are here to discuss this by Calvin Michaels. Like and subscribe to Calvin Michaels. He's doing wonderful things in these YouTube streets. And we want to hear which is the majority of the Black popular viewpoint on Candace Owens, as was prefaced by the Young Turks commentary of, I failed to get his name on the Young Turks there. And again, we'll let Calvin Michaels take the stage here. Thank you very much for joining me on Talk Live.
Floyd's roommates and not really telling them the purpose of her documentary, but trying to get them to say things that would help push her narrative. Again, pushing the idea of that George Floyd brought it on himself, right? Gaslighting everybody. So nonsense. Then, reparations.
Let's go back a little further here.
You literally talk. Turn your camera on and say your 2 cents like everybody else, right? Pull yourself up by the bootstrap. Nonsense. Then we get to George Floyd, right? She literally, specifically for DC, I have a link to the nonprofit group Guns Down Friday, right? There's all these groups that fight and claw to try to help and fix some of the issues in the collective and in the community. But you know what? They never pay attention to those groups. They only kind of weaponize the idea of violence within black communities when they need to justify why white people have done something terrible to somebody black. Now they want to paint the narrative like, oh, you guys, it's all in your head. This is what you need to be focused on. Oh, no, people can focus on more than one thing. But the problem is you want black folks to stay silent in regard to anti-blackness because, again, too much smoke against that collective that keeps you paid all of a sudden means you have to work a little bit harder to fight that narrative because you must maintain that status quo. That's what that's all about. It's not about her caring about anything about Tyshawn Lee because his name never came out of her mouth until she needed to find a reason to justify why Ahmaud Arbery is dead.
Let's move on there.
You have things called like affordable dwelling units and different programs that subsidize your rent based on how much you get paid, right? And so that technically falls under a welfare bracket, right? You know, food programs, all kind of food assistance, all these different things. She's advocating to get rid of all of that. Not because all of a sudden it will make society better, but because, again, it appeases that demographic that she markets herself to. Now, yes, I would love for us to get into a space where society wouldn't have to depend on these programs, but the way that things are set up, unfortunately, there are people who are collateral to a bigger system where, yes, they fall by the wayside. They need additional assistance to help them get and stay on their feet. They're trying to maintain. They are doing the best that they can. So by villainizing and vilifying them as being lazy and people who have no ambition or aren't pulling themselves up by the bootstrap, it's really rich coming from you who's now out here asking for donations. To do what? You literally talk. Turn your camera on and say your 2 cents like everybody else, right? Pull yourself up by the bootstrap. Nonsense. Then we get to George Floyd, right? She literally helped push the narrative.
Again, if you did not know already, he is Calvin's literally detailing the sins of Candace Owens towards the black community. If you didn't know already, which is well celebrated. But I want this to get to the point of the sentiments raised in terms of her Crisis King comment. Let's continue.
That he didn't die from an officer, Derek Chauvin, literally sitting on his neck and putting all of his body weight on this man's neck for 8 minutes. Oh no, he had fentanyl in his system. That's how he died. And I'm like, so you're telling me that had he never been stopped by police, he was just going to walk out of that store and drop dead. That's what you're saying. And she was so pressed about it, she ended up creating a documentary to further push this narrative, which, again, the documentary kind of fell apart anyway. And then she was so shady with how she did it, even finding George Floyd's roommates and not really telling them the purpose of her documentary, but trying to get them to say things that would help push her narrative. Again, pushing the idea of that George Floyd brought it on himself, right? Gaslighting everybody. So, nonsense. Then, reparations. Can we get to that, right? Her thoughts on reparations. This girl here. Reparations are the extraction of money from people who were never slave owners to be given to people who were never slaves. It's revenge for something that was done to ancestors at the expense of people who had nothing to do with it. Again, her having a very vague approach on this conversation of reparations. We know that the conversation of reparations is about a structural issue and the generational wealth accumulated as an end result of slavery, the Jim Crow era, sharecropping. And it gets bigger than that because reparations isn't just tied to slavery. It also ties to, again, what we saw with housing discrimination and redlining and the FHA program and how black people were left out, how black people were left out of the GI program, how black people were left out of the New Deal, how black people were not even allowed to be a part of the FDA program because of the land that many of them used for their farms was heirs land. It didn't qualify for the USDA program. And so they didn't qualify for farming. And that's why we've lost 14 million of the 15 million acres that we once had as farmers. Like, there's all this stuff that's structural, but she decided to paint the picture as a one blanket statement again to make it seem like, oh, let's individualize a structural conversation. Let's take a structural conversation that is all about cause and effect and economics, and let's strip it down to individuals and then say people are out here whining, they're just not earning their keep. But it's so funny because she likes to pick and choose when she cares about racial discrimination because she certainly sued her high school for it and won, right? She understood how blackness worked then, right? Now that she's gotten this platform, or had this platform, and again, there's that group she needs to appease, she wants to do the whole let me disassociate, pretend I'm not one of them. I don't do that race thing. I don't complain. I'm not a whiny toddler. Like, be for real, right? And again, and then, here we go. And a prime example again, let me find another quote here. All right. I can't think of the last Asian that I ran into that talked about internment camps, she said to the crowd, but black people always want to talk to me about slavery.
Oh boy.
Right? Again, playing that same game where, again, it's the conversation of let's individualize structural conversations. Let's just change the narrative around history. Let's restructure things, because if we can just paint it to be that, the reason people are in the predicaments that they're in is just because it's all to the fall of their own. There is no kind of system in place that somewhat creates spaces where opportunities are lost. We're going to ignore all of that, right? We're going to paint things. And again, even with the conversation of those in the internment camps, they also got reparations. So hell, they ain't got nothing to say because they got a check. So, this is where we're at. Then the idea of her, again, spreading the idea, white privilege is alive, right? Same nonsense, right? And we saw what she said about the conversation of DEI, because that's the new wave right now, right? Diversity, equity, inclusion, that's the new wave. That has morphed from the race card and morphed from reverse discrimination and reverse racism to woke to CRT, and now it's DEI. That's the next wave everybody's hopping on. She's hopping on it. So now she'd be terrified if she was on a plane that had women pilots. Like, this girl is full of nonsense. And so, for me, I just need people to remember that this is what she's decided to latch and lock herself into. So just because some white men done kicked her off to the curb, she doesn't get the sympathy card all of a sudden because she endorsed and played into that same narrative, played into that same system, made lots and lots of money. I'm talking 6 and 7 figures by spewing out anti-black talking points, by being in the way. Being in the way. Do you know how many people use her as...
Now, again, I don't want to ruin his tyrant because he is on a roll, ladies and gentlemen. I think he's outlaying his argument quite well. To be fair and frank, he's quite the good orator. However, when he says that she's against the viewpoints of the black voter. Again, some of those black voters tend to be conservatives. So again, he's not he speaks of black voting being a whole body of a progressive / democratic / centrist to left ideology, which may not be true, but it is the truth of pretty much the majority of the population because of what has gone on in the past and how we've suffered as a people, which I am in total agreement. And the denial of that is, I don't agree with, quite simply. But again, he's on a roll. I'll let him continue.
As a reference to justify racism in this country. Do you know how many people use her as a reference to try to gaslight other groups of people who literally show up with stats, numbers, documentation, ordinances of the city, different articles, amendments, all this different stuff that highlights the structural issues that exist in this country in regard to anti-blackness and how racism affects people on a structural level? How many people use points that she's made to try to justify the nonsense? And because she has black skin, they say, well, if she feels this way, that's how y'all need to be. And so she knows how this game works, all right? She's chosen to be a mouthpiece for white supremacy and anti-blackness, and it made her a lot of money. Now the tides have shifted, right? And she's not really sure how this is going to work for her. And so now here comes the sympathy card. Now here's her asking for donations. Make it make sense. That girl, when I say a clown, a clown. Candace, be for real. Stay on over there with that nonsense. Like, for me, there's just too much damage. It's one thing to sell out an entire collective of people because you're trying to get a check, but it's another thing to constantly double down and build bigger platforms and end up on panel discussions and news shows and get work published, spewing out things that aren't even true, to literally make a documentary about a man who was murdered in front of the entire world by police officers who sat on this man's neck with no empathy as he pleaded for his life. And we all watched it in real time. And for you to be so pressed because you're all about comforting, again, that same demographic and making them feel good about their terrible decisions, that, you make a documentary just to kind of push a narrative. You know how many times people come on this thing and like, no, he died from fentanyl. It was overdose. Oh, effing please. Be for real. So no, Candace, you on your own on this one. You can stay over there with that. You wanted to roll in and get worms and everything, go over there and enjoy it. Do not bring that nonsense over here because that's what you built for yourself, so enjoy it. Let that be a lesson learned.
Let that be a lesson learned. Well, let me tell you something. Calvin Michaels is a well-spoken individual, to be fair and frank. I can see why he has another 67,000 subscribers. Wow. His oration skills are amazing, and he makes a lot of very salient views. So I would, I'm subscribing to him right now. I think you should too. despite wherever on the political spectrum you may be. Shout out to my man Golden Arm. How are you, sir? And he deserves your attention, quite simply, and he deserves your subscription. So again, subscribe to Calvin Michaels, CalvinMichaels, Calvin Michaels, and and his post of Candace Owens. Nope, keep that foolery over there. The door is closed. Out ya, begging. Whoa, yeah. But again, let me just. I think that would be all the views for tonight. I think I've got all that I need here. Yes, indeed, I have. Let me make sure I have everything I want. Yes, and yeah. So let me bring it to myself, and then we can bring this show to an actual close. Back to the full cam. Let's say this, okay? Candace Owens. Whether you like her or hate her, she has a right to her viewpoint, a right to her views. Now, again, you can come out on many ends of the spectrum on this one. You can come out as a supporter of the Jews. You can come out as a woke supporter. You can come out as one who believes that Candace Owens should be given a bit of grace by her people, or that she is a coon shucking and jiving for the man and to curry his favor. Now, my viewpoint, and this stems from her support of Kanye West. The fact of the matter is, when the world walked away from a genius like Kanye, she decided to stick around, and she has been there for the long haul, and she vouches for, and he vouches for her. And for me, that is well and well enough. Now, again, let me say this. I am not a full supporter of what Candace Owens had to say. Actually, I was an enemy of what she had to say, especially during the times of George Floyd. I refuse to acknowledge it as Black Lives Matter because I believe Black Lives Matter was indeed a scam, as has been proven in the fullness of time. Now, so in terms of her comments, I think the vitriol because of her comments, and the eventual firing because of her comments, it came as seeing the evidence in full now. It came as no surprise because I think Ben Shapiro and I believe that Candace Owens were going loggerheads at each other, and quite simply, there was going to come a time where a decision had to be made, and it was either going to be Ben or Mr. Clavin or Candace Owens, and decided to cut Candace Owens and cut their losses. Even though Candace Owens was one of the reasons why a lot of people tuned into the Daily Wire. So I believe with what Valuetainment had to say, I think the market will dictate how bad things will get with the terms of this decision. But let me say this about Candace Owens. In terms of her red pill viewpoints, in terms of her conservative values, I'm in full support of her. I really am. I think she's got a lot of good things to say with regards to men and the suffering of men, and the loss of family values, and also how things have fallen apart in terms of the family and single mother households, and African diaspora in North America, and their plight. So I am very much in support of that. But again, she has come. I do disagree with her with regards to her views on George Floyd, her views on the fact that we have been disadvantaged, and she does not see such an advantage. She came from a single-parent household, and for her to be oblivious to the plight of black folk, now that she's in the elevated position, despite the fact that she is interracially married, well, that's a whole other symptom in and of itself. But again, that is, let's say this, I think it's a misstep on her part. So, Candace Owens, let me say this about Candace Owens. She's a very complex individual. She's going to have a lot of viewpoints on many different things, and things that I do agree with, some things that I don't agree with. But I believe she has the right to say what she has to say. And I believe that she did not have the right to be fired for what she fired from. But again, I think it was an accumulation of strikes against Daily Wire and the, I'll say this, the powers that be at Daily Wire that got her fired. And I think she grew tired of being around Ben Shapiro and having different views to her. And I think it was, the Christ the King, as innocent as it was, but was the last straw, and she had to go, according to the powers that be at the Daily Wire. Now, I think she'll be back on her feet doing her own thing, and I think she'll be very, very much welcome back in the conservative space in the full of the time. But again, she is alone taking. Well, I think there's a growing conservative population, especially around black folk, although the hegemony of the black vote does tend to lean liberal, tend to lean progressive. So it's still an uphill battle. She'll still have a lot of enemies. She'll still have not only with the Jewish people, but also within the black space. And I think she has been ready for that. But she does have a lot of people who are supporters of her. I support her on many of you. And I think, but at the end of the day, I think her being fired from the Daily Wire was hasty, foolhardy, and taken in the wrong way. However, it was due to accumulation of strikes to which she was fired. There it is. And it was a case of her or some of the other commentators and showrunners at the Daily Wire, and they came to a decision. They decided to let go of the only black women on the panel. And again, some people would say it's the chickens have come home to roost, as Calvin has previously said, and they do not wish to support her, but she will receive her support, believe me. And I think she will still be as vivacious and as well subscribed as ever. So we have to watch this space, quite simply. And I'm glad that you're watching this space with me tonight on this late night version of Talk Live. But watch that Candace Owens space, because we will all want to see what she does next. Thank you very much for joining me on Talk Live on this late night version of Talk Live here. We're going to end things here. It's going to be fully uploaded on YouTube. I will also release the Talk Live Minute, which will be released right after the show here in due course, and in synopsis of the show. And I'm getting a lot of good traction from that. So again, like, subscribe, comment to that. Again, put your comments down below the show. I'd like to hear your views on Candace Owens and her firing, whether good, whether bad, whether indifferent, because this is a complicated lady. And this is a complicated subject matter, and it's a complicated, decision made by Daily Wire. Whether it will impact their bottom line remains to be seen. So thank you very much for joining me on Talk Live. We will be back again next Thursday. We're going to take a few days off because I have a bit of work to work through here. So we're going to take the next few days off. But we'll be back next Thursday with another topic. I believe we're going to be getting back to the intersectional dynamics point of things, because I haven't been there in a little while, so we're going to get back there on a future show on Thursday. So look for that, and I thank you for joining me on Talk Live. Enjoy your Easter weekend. Happy Easter to those who celebrate, and look forward to speaking to you all again next week. So he is risen to those who consider themselves Christian. And to those who do not, or to those who do not follow the Christian faith, and who are not Christian people or non-believers whatsoever, I wish you a happy holiday nonetheless. And I look forward to speaking to you very, very soon. And good night. Happy Easter from Toronto. Thank you very much for joining me on Talk Live. Thank you very much on YouTube. Please keep your comments down below with regards to the show tonight in Candace Owens. It's a bit of a long one indeed, but we got it knocked out because, again, this is a hot topic, so I wanted to get it out of the way tonight, and we have done that. So, again, like, subscribe, comment below. Spread the word to your family, to your friends, in regards to the show, and look forward to speaking to you very, very soon. Again, I'm going to drop a Talk Live short that's coming. That